My experience with the most capable off-road electric unicycle, the Begode X-Way, has been quite the roller coaster. And quite a big frustration and disappointment of repairing it several times. Just to later find out that this is actually a prototype, and since so much stuff needed fixing on this wheel, Begode sent me actually a whole new wheel without the battery, so I can re-review it? I don't know at this point. Let me tell you more about it. Alright, so if you're confused, you are not the only one here. Because as I was really wanting to make a review of this wheel for the past couple of months, it was just unreviewable, it just kept on breaking. And it turns out, yes, Begode later told me, or maybe I just didn't get the memo right the first time around, that this is actually a prototype and not a full production version. But at the same time, I'm kind of annoyed because this was actually not that safe to ride. Alright, so we're taking the X-Way apart, and in general I have this thread broken, and I realized that we are looking here at this amount of thread, exactly just this amount of thread holding everything together. Like, what is this? Guys, there's nothing on the side. When you take this off here, there's no like ridges that hold the pedal bracket in place. This is just like... yeah, I'm not all for it. But in the end, I got the prototype to work and I could shred it pretty hard in the Warsaw area, and I'm quite impressed with what this thing is capable of. And with its torque and suspension travel and some of the features that it has, I think genuinely that if it works, it is the most capable off-road wheel ever made. So today I'll tell you a bit more about the Begode X-Way, and at the same time I can't tell you that much because things change and parts changed, so it's really a confusing video for me to make because I can tell you about the features and how I liked it, but then again, is it really relevant when this thing is here? But I can't wait forever to make a review. I want to make videos. I can't just like replace every part and then, you know, there's never a updated thing for me to ride and review because once I make the video, there's already something new in the works. So I guess in this video I'll gloss over the main features of the Begode X-Way, the pedals, the handle, the software, the ride, sort of as an initial review of the X-Way, and then I'll come back to it once I figure all of the body swapping out. So let's get into it. And first of all, this wheel was sent to me for free by Begode, and the repairs were also covered by them, so that was really cool. And this will be an unbiased review. I'll tell you about all of the good stuff and the bad stuff, as you already probably noticed in the video. If you want to find out about all of the issues with that wheel, I recently made a video about all of the wheels by Begode that I received recently, and there I go over all of the details a bit more thoroughly. Today I want to focus a bit more on the whole package. I'll tell you about the issues nonetheless, at least some of them, and how this wheel is like to ride. This particular wheel is not available for sale at mywheel.com, which is my partner for the European market. But if you want to get any other wheel in Europe, feel free to check out their site and use my coupon code WRONGWAY to get an additional discount. I also do receive kickbacks from those orders. All right, so let's get on to the main specifications of the Begode X-Way. Now, compared to the Begode Blitz that I made a video about a while ago, the Begode X-Way is supposed to be the more off-road oriented wheel for jumps, trails, very steep inclines, muddy terrain. Well, it also has a IP rating for water resistance, insane torque. In general, if you want to do something really crazy with this wheel, Begode wants you to do it with this one. Whether it will survive it or not, I hope that explains it thoroughly. So starting with the motor, we have a very high torque motor in this wheel, C38 with tile magnets. And let me tell you, this is, I know I say it in so many videos, but I think it's the most torquey wheel on the market. And it's gotten to a point where it's really difficult for me to measure the torque because the tire starts to be the problem. I tried to go up a 40-degree incline from standstill on this wheel and the tire just wouldn't let me, it slips out.
All right, maybe when it's warmer and the tire has more grip.
And when going off-road, I can push this wheel into oblivion and it doesn't dip the pedals, but at some point the tire will just spin out. Same applies to sand. This wheel is a true sander. Like, look at those clips. I'm going through some deep sand close to a beach and this just rips like a one-wheeled Dakar off-road motorcycle. All right, maybe I got a bit carried away, but the torque on this thing is crazy. Like, I can literally bring this thing to a drift. It has one wheel. So yeah, the motor has 4,500 watts of nominal power. I don't know where the peak power is, but it's extremely powerful and anything you will ever need from an electric unicycle. I have my alarm set pretty low on this thing at 70% PWM, so I can go up to 60 kilometers an hour at pretty much any battery state. It starts beeping at me when I had a lower battery of like 50-40% at 57, 58 kilometers per hour, and those are pretty close to GPS values as far as I've heard from other reviews. I'm actually too lazy to check that out myself. In any way, if you really want to push it to the top speed, I would say 65, 70 kilometers an hour. Other reviewers will tell you 90 kilometers an hour, but I don't think it's safe to go so fast on an electric unicycle. So I just typically go up to 35, 40 kilometers an hour. I have the headroom. That's enough for me. We have 130 millimeters of travel on the suspension setup. You can see it here. We have 2 stanchions. We have a spring in the back. We have adjustable compression, rebound, and preload. Everything is hyper accessible. This for me has been the most capable suspension setup that I've ever tried on an electric unicycle. Well, I didn't try the NOSFET yet, so this is pretty awesome. And while it is very clunky and annoying, it still allows me to do things that I wouldn't be otherwise allowed to do. But yes, it's definitely not as smooth and controllable as the F22 Pro. The wheel size is 20 inches outside diameter, 14 inches of the rim diameter. We have 2 battery pack options. I have the bigger one with the 3000 watt hour unit with Samsung 50S cells. Those are pretty high quality, and 168 volts of peak voltage. This is also the heavier option at around 42, 43 kilograms of weight. Now when it comes to the range of this wheel with the 3000 watt hour battery pack, I did a range test a couple days ago in very cold weather, 2 to 5 degrees Celsius, and I got 98 kilometers GPS. Well, it was 96 on the sports tracker, but additional 2 kilometers because I forgot to turn on the tracker when I left home. And anyway, it was a pretty fast range test. I also did some off-roading, some climbing up hills, and it was generally fun apart from just going on a long straight on asphalt puffs. But it's a good range. It's very similar to the ET Max, and I have really nothing to complain about here, except for the fact that 0% starts very early on this wheel. So you have about maybe 5-10 kilometers of range when riding with those annoying beeps. So I think they should set them lower, or maybe it is already lower with a software update. But yeah, those beeps were very annoying. And that's why later in the app, I set up the volume of the beeper to be at 1, so I don't have to deal with a constant beeping. It is a bit less safe because you won't hear the overpowering beeps, or maybe you will, maybe they're like overridden by the system, but the wheel will still tilt back if the battery is low. So that was pretty annoying. It's sort of the opposite compared to Emotion, where at Emotion it dies at 5%. Here you just ride forever at 0. So yeah, just one thing to keep in mind. But yeah, the range, pretty awesome on this wheel. Essentially what you would expect at this battery size and setup. So cool. And next to that, we have a 2400 watt hour version, which is the same capacity as the Blitz. Sort of Begode just making a lot of similar unicycles with slightly different specs this year. But the version with the smaller battery is lighter at 38 kilograms. And well, it will have less range and also less voltage, 134 volts, so a little bit less performance too. But if you want to have a off-road trail wheel, I would probably go for the lighter one, because weight when you're going off-road is very important. Well, the lack of it, or the lesser weight. So yeah, I have the heavier one, I deal with it, and I like it, but it would be nice if it would be lighter. Still, the 3000 watt hour one does the job pretty well off-road. Well, pretty well. It does it amazingly. All right, so with the specs out of the way, let's talk about the features from the bottom to the top of the wheel. I'll try to keep it really brief because some things changed in the end. And yeah, I want to review this, but again, production version will be different. So yeah, I'll try to keep it short. Starting with the tire. It's been a while since I rode on a Kenda K262, and I kind of don't like it anymore. This tire feels less grippy than the CST C186, and it almost feels like a little bit too mellow, almost like the wheel and the rider is too heavy for it. It feels very soft and mushy, so it takes a bit of time to get used to the wheel when it comes to turning. It's definitely not as precise as the F22 Pro, but the F22 Pro has also a different suspension setup, so I don't know if it's the fault of just the tire or the rim, which is, I guess, a little bit narrower than what we have on the Lynxes of this world and the F22 Pro, the Motion V14. But yeah, when it comes to the tire, I would like to see either the CST C186 here. It's funny. Years ago, I used to prefer the other way around, but now with more experience, I prefer the CST, or actually a Shinko tire or something wider, because as said, the contact patch and the tire is now the limitation for torque. So yeah, a wider tire would probably help with that off-road, but maybe it would also bring some other challenges along the way. So I don't know. As it is here, it is rideable, it is nice, but not as nice as it could be. Moving on to the rim, I have no dents in the rim. It looks very durable. Probably Begode says that it's reinforced. Might be, I don't know. It's been a while since I dented a rim on an electric unicycle, so it's fine. But when it comes to the bearings, on the prototype version that I've had, my bearings have broken and I needed to change them. If they're proper here, I hope so. Now, when it comes to the bottom part of the wheel, we have some bumpers here, and they don't feel as rigid and robust as on the veteran wheels, but maybe at the same time they are better for impact absorption. The kickstand in the back is very solid, it's sturdy, and the wheel sits very far back when you put it on a kickstand, but that is also because the kickstand is very high up, so you never have an issue going downhill, down some steep trails. So really awesome kickstand, and it doesn't look as quality as the things on other wheels, but they do the job well. I also really don't like the small screws that they are using here. The tolerances here are awful, but that again is because it's a prototype, which I should have known from the beginning, or should have listened a bit more carefully. The ground clearance on this thing is also insane. So this is the major difference you will see compared to the Begode Blitz, or even compared to the Veteran Lynx. You stand very high up on the wheel and the suspension goes up and down. So you have just a lot of travel and a lot of control in the wheel. Because of that, the center of weight is also higher, so it takes a bit more getting used to when it comes to really pushing the wheel. You need to really lean into it, front, back, to the sides, when you really want to ride in a performance kind of way, but it listens to you once you do that, and it never gave up on me. So yeah, a lot of clearance, which is awesome for trail riding. When it comes to the pedals, they're excellent. This is the new design by Begode with very long studs, angle adjustable, and also they stay in place. I don't really like the cutout here because my leg usually goes around here, so I prefer the prior shape of Begode pedals, but this will do. Now the biggest issue here is the mount here, and with how the prototype got sent out to me from factory, it was actually pretty dangerous with those screws being too short and this element getting loose. I did re-thread some threads here and I got some new screws and I don't have any issues anymore, and hopefully it's safe enough, but I definitely prefer the pedal sort of mounting way of the Kingsong F22 Pro or the Lynx, when you have the pedal mount all the way to the back, so there's not such a huge lever on this middle mount here, and in general the screws are also bigger. So definitely for a off-road performance wheel, I think that the pedal hanger should be beefed up. And yeah, they're even weaker than on the Blitz. However, on the Blitz, the mounts got bent. Here they're not, but maybe that's also because I just rode this wheel less. But yeah, not the biggest fan of that, but the pedal's really cool. When it comes to the mudguard, this is the same carbon mudguard, or well, actually it's plastic mudguard that I've seen on the Blitz. On the Blitz, it broke and just snapped off in the back, and then Begode got some reinforcements, so here it should be okay. Oh, it even wobbles less than mine. So this one should be okay. This will probably die soon. But anyway, the one that you receive should be fine. And it's long enough, especially in the back, for rainy riding. In the front, it should be good enough. And here we have a little storage container for dust. So convenient. I really love the fact that I have a blank canvas here on the side with a wonderfully flat surface area to put your pads on. And it's huge, but even so, like, as big of a surface you'll give me, I'll put the pads on the furthest edge of it possible, because I just really like to ride with my legs spread wide out. Anyway, with that said, this wheel doesn't need a fairing plate. Really good on Begode for thinking about the riders. And in the box we also do get a set of pads. Maybe this one is the wrong way around. No, it's the correct way around. They're cool, but they're a bit narrow, and Wheel Good Time was saying the same thing. Yeah, for a performance off-road wheel, there are those like stock pads that you get with the Veteran wheels and with Emotion, and those are better than this. I mean, those look cooler and they fit the wheel a bit nicer, but they're worse for really going hardcore off-roading, especially that can't really push into them because you just like roll right out, and the jump pad is definitely too narrow. So cool, and you can ride it in a city, but this is the way to go. Like, if you really want to push this wheel, then you will get some Grizzly pads. They hold on tight. Good quality. And I have a bit of a weird setup with having a brake pad and a front pad, acceleration pad, and the lower part of the brake pad as a jump pad. But at Grizzly, you can actually select the same modules if you want to have the same setup as me. Usually the pads look like this, and this would be the setup, but I just don't really like this part here, and this just suits me better. But yeah, you feel free to use my coupon code WRONGWAY if you want to get any of those, to also get a discount for Grizzly pads. Highly recommend them for this wheel. All right, but let's talk suspension for a minute because the setup here is insane. And as I've heard, you only have the option for a 900-pound spring now, and you can adjust the setting for your weight based on different sort of points of adjustment here. Well, first of all, you get a tool in a box. Where is it? Tool in a box for preload, and you just put it in here, and then you can spin the spring in order to adjust how high you stand on the wheel. And typically I have quite a bit of preload, maybe up to here, because I just like the way it's set up there. And by the way, my X-Way here, the prototype, also has the 900-pound spring installed, and for the most part it was fine. Then in the back here we have the valve where you put in pressure in order to adjust the compression and rebound. So the more pressure you have here, the stronger the effect of those two. I at least believe that's how it is. With that said, I really love the fact that this is the easiest suspension to adjust on the go, both with the placement of those knobs and with the preload as well here, because you just lift up the seat, trolley handle combo, and then you can adjust it. So if I wanted to do jumps, I just crank the compression all the way up so it's very stiff. And you can also adjust, you know, the rebound to however you like it. The slower the rebound, the more sort of control you have with the wheel not bouncing around so much. Really awesome, really adjustable. And this is not the end, because on the side here, with those two screws, you can adjust how hard the suspension is or how soft. I didn't play around with the setting on my wheel yet. There's just so much to adjust here. But for, I don't know, for bigger weights or just doing jumps, you can even adjust the geometry here, which is pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, a really sort of complex way to set up your suspension. But that doesn't mean that the suspension doesn't have any flaws. Well, in my unit, it was so extremely clunky, I stopped riding downstairs literally because it was embarrassing with the sound. I don't like noise in general, especially unnecessary noise. Like for example, loud motorcycles or loud cars. I think that's an extremely small brain move, and people can change. I used to have a loud bike for, 2 weeks, and I started to be embarrassed to go anywhere with it because it was so loud. So yeah, I later sold it. Loud things, like unnecessarily loud things, I really don't like, and believe me, other people do hate them too. With that said, yeah, the suspension is clunky. On stairs, it doesn't sound like the F22 Pro at all, and it's definitely not as smooth. But at the same time, if you look at it going off-road, it's actually moving very, very smoothly. And it provides you with a great level of control, especially combined with the fact that the travel here is 130 millimeters. So you'll have a lot more control over big bumps, big potholes, going over routes, compared to a suspension setup, which has less travel. For example, with the Veteran Lynx. With the Lynx, you'll just like bounce around and struggle for grip, while with this one, you'll just go right through it. I also really don't like the clunk of the suspension. This is because when the suspension fully extends, it just hits against two small pieces of rubber here on the bottom. Is it even here? Yeah, it's just the rubber here. Maybe here it's better quality, but it's just very rough when it does the full extensions of the throw, which is annoying. So yeah, I hope that the sounds are more eliminated on this sort of production batch, but my hopes aren't that high because the suspension is made by Begode in-house, which means that it might be more optimized. Oh, by the way, it's leaking oil here. Okay. Here you go. Which does mean that it's more optimized for electric unicycle use, but that also means that they have less experience than suspension manufacturers like D&M and Fastdays. So probably the best setup for this wheel would be having this geometry and having the shock made by a company that makes shocks. What shock? So I hope that in the future, Begode, just talk with Fastdays or talk with D&M and make a damper with their help, or just use something off the shelf that they have. Because, if this would be just working a lot better, Like, this is a killer setup. But you also have to keep in mind that this is not a wet lubrication system like we have on a V14. Those are dry lubricated sliders with graphite inserts. And while, for example, on the Begode Extreme that I had, it was working fine, I don't know how it would be for you and if there's huge discrepancies in different units that Begode pushes out. And I don't know how the suspension will survive in the long run. So if you do have a wheel like that, feel free to comment below what is your experience with the suspension on the Begode X-Way. The charge port is now on the side. Not a big fan of that because, well, you can just hit the bumper here and maybe this will just disintegrate this charge port. So I preferred the location of it underneath the motherboard as it was before. It is more comfortable to plug in the charger on the side, but I'm not sure if it's worth the safety. With the stock charger, we charge at a level of 5 amps, which means about 2-3 hours for a full charge. Pretty nice. And with 20 amps, you can charge this thing up in about 40-50 minutes with a pit zoom charger. Yeah, I just use pretty much the pit zoom charger with this wheel. I don't use anything else because the stock one is just very bulky and quite loud. Next to the charge port, we have the light, and I love it. It's a great beam. It has daytime running lights. Begode actually knows how to make lights now. At least the front one, that is. So yeah, this one I like. It's angle adjustable, the beam is good, the brightness is good, although it could be brighter, but I don't mind it really at all because at some point it will get too blinding for other users of the road and bike path. So yeah, pretty cool light. But what I really don't like, and it really frustrates me on this wheel, and I don't think it was that much changed on the production version, are the cable setups here. Like the cables just pop out on their own when I'm riding. So at some point I siliconed them all in place for them to never move, just to later realize that I need to service the wheel again and take them out. So yeah, even though they use pretty nice water resistant connectors here, I don't know if the tolerances are not right here, and maybe as said they fixed it in this production version, but here some cables, they just like pop out when I'm jumping. I think it's because of the clunk of extending the suspension. And the same thing applies to the charge port cable here. First of all, it was very difficult to put in and reach it because it's just so sort of hidden and tucked away. Second of all, the cable itself wasn't insulated, so I hope it is there. This was actually pretty dangerous on Begode's part, even if this was a prototype. Yeah, just not a fan of those cables here. Moving up here, we have a pretty robust bumper, and it seems to be better and more durable than on the Blitz, and same thing applies here to the back. It doesn't look that quality, but I guess it'll do the job well. Oh, sorry. Oily fingers now from the suspension setup. On the back we have a tail light, which looks pretty bad, honestly. It's very dim, and you can see that just like one LED is missing from the light strip here. Yeah, maybe a prototype thing, maybe not. I guess we'll see, but this one is pretty dim. But the bumper is okay, and on top of the bumper we have a seat. I have mounted some additional Velcro here because the seat just kept popping up and down because it doesn't lock in place. It should lock in place on both sides, and this would make it a lot more of a comfortable trolley handle. The seat is definitely too far back, and it has not been changed in the production version. It should be, I think, up to here. So I just usually sit on this part. It is okay to ride seated on this wheel, but it could be a lot more comfortable. When it comes to the trolley handle function of it, it's actually surprisingly nice. And I like that it has a hole here in the back, so you can push it either like this or like this. So if it would be locking in place, it would be perfect, but as it is now, it's good enough. And finally, on the top, we also have a screen, which has 3 digits because of the speed of this wheel, and you have a bunch of parameters there as well. I really like that it's very readable and big, but I think that especially the battery readout could be a bit more precise, because if you have 3 bars, it could be either 60% or 40%. So I would rather have a percentage readout or some more bars on this display here. So with that said, I think that covers mostly the features, or at least the external features of the wheel. So now let's talk a bit about the software on the Begode X-Way. But maybe actually before we go to the software, I did receive a manual from Begode, and this is the most... Did you see this paper? Like, it's literally like... I don't know why, but they just chose the most premium paper there ever was for a manual. Well, it's not a manual really, it just shows you different models of Begode that are available for sale. It's really just a upselling book, and it just tells you like some very, very basic stuff here. I won't go too deep into that, but paper quality, it's literally better than the quality of my prototype. But yeah, when it comes to the software on this wheel is very adjustable, but it doesn't feel as refined as, for example, Emotion or Kingsong wheels. So yeah, when it comes to the software, I guess there's no better way to talk about it other than showing you the app itself. So yeah, now there will be a little bit of a sound. This is the sound of the Begode X-Way. Sounds a bit like a fax machine, but this is normal. So on the main screen, you can see the speed, which is cut out because I guess they didn't adjust for the format of my phone. You can see the battery percentage, you can see the temperature of the motherboard, and I believe here's also a temperature sensor on the motor, but I never could actually see the values here. Some additional information here like current and the phase current, other stuff. So yeah, really cool to have that here. And there's also information about your mode. You can also use the horn. Probably no one will realize it's a horn. You can turn on the light. It also has a blinking mode now, like good old Begode wheels. And you can actually never turn off the daytime running light. It's always on, can't turn it off. You can also record some videos and some pictures while riding. So that's, for example, how I recorded this video that you can see now. Now, of course, the most interesting part about the software is the settings. Here we have a mode setting on the top, and it's not as advanced as on the Kingsong F22 Pro or on the veteran wheels where there's a slider. No, here you have just 3 mode settings. And even in the strongest setting, I feel like the pedals slightly move around when you accelerate and brake. It doesn't feel as precise as the Kingsong F22 Pro. Well, the Kingsong software is really a mind to wheel connection. Here it's something that you need to get used to, but it's pretty solid once you do it, and the torque is insane. The second setting is alarm setting. You just select turn off level 2 alarm. It's a very antiquated alarm here at Begode. Otherwise it will just beep at what, 25-30 kilometers an hour. I really don't know why it's here, but it's here. You can set up your tilt back speed. I had it off, but you can set it to 69. Oh yeah, nice. And you can also set up a power alarm tilt back. So this is really awesome because then I guess the open setting will tilt the wheel back once you reach the 70% power threshold. And this is the power alarm I have here. I have set it to 70% because I just like to have a lot of headroom. If you want to push the wheel more, I guess up to 80 maybe, but really I would just leave it at 70% because I like to live. Then we also have the pedal turning angle adjustment, and this is the setting that is only available on Begode wheels, and this is a total game changer. So while on Kingsong wheels they stay flat in turns, on Emotions they can dip a little bit. Same thing applies to veteran. At Begode it's actually adjustable. You can set the wheel to a higher value so the pedals go up or the body goes up in turns, or you can set up to a lower value so the pedals go down in turns. It's really awesome for racing, for calibrating the wheel so it doesn't go up or down when doing shifties and jumps, or when doing tricks, spinny moves. You can set it up to have a very planted feel. So this is a really awesome feature. I hope other electric unicycle manufacturers will have that. Then you can also set up the horizontal adjustment. Here it's totally like broken. It should be on 0 in the middle, but it's at 4. This sets up how tilted the wheel is. And this is a very bugged setting. I really don't like it because the wheel forgets the setting that you priorly selected compared to other electric unicycles where the setting gets saved. And it also doesn't have any decimal increments. So you either go from 1 degree to 2 to 3. There's no 1.2, 1.3. I hope they change that in the future. Then we have the operating mode. There's off-road and race mode. I just use off-road mode all the time because it has more torque. It's much easier to overpower the wheel like on a sudden move in race mode. But I guess if you do racing, then select race mode. I guess the wheel will be faster than with a higher top speed. Now, the maximum speed reminder, I have at 80. I should have set it a bit lower, maybe at like 60 or 65. I really don't want to go fast on this wheel. So you can also set up the LED settings, but I don't think it changes anything on this wheel. You can set up the volume of the beeper, and at 1 it's barely audible, and this is what I've selected when I was doing the range test on this wheel. Then there's also maximum allowed tilt angle, and I don't think that this works because maybe it does, I don't know, because it should have a actual angle setup. I don't know why this is here. Maybe it's a bug in this particular version of the app, because you should have a maximum tilt angle of, 85 degrees or even 90 degrees in the app. I don't see it now, but I genuinely think it's a bug. But if it's not, then you can set up high, medium or low, and then the wheel will turn off its balancing system at a certain degree angle sideways.
One thing that was always slow on Begode was the electronics and software when falling, or the wheel getting back up. So check this out now. Turns off right away, and then turns on right away. People will rejoice about this because this is it's a big deal. Very nice. Cool.
So if you want to do berms off-road, if you want to go to a pump track, just yank it up to like 70 degrees or even 80, 85. That's what I sometimes do, so the wheel doesn't turn off when you do some very sharp corners in berms. Now the next thing is calibration. So if your wheel does some wonky behavior when you turn to the sides and it just lifts up the pedal or the pedals go down, just calibrate it so it will react better. And there's the mileage statistics, so I guess how many kilometers are on the wheel, and you can set up your units. And very importantly, of course, there's the smart BMS, and you can see here all the batteries, about 4.13 volts, so really awesome. Balancing, everything is all right. Every wheel needs a smart BMS. So yeah, if you want to do a software update on this wheel, you have to go to Me and then log in. I won't do that here, but this is essentially the app. I guess the thing that is most different to, for example, Kingsong or Immersion about the software is that the app doesn't look maybe as refined as their wheels. There you have slightly less options, but some options are also better at Begode compared to Kingsong, like for example the pedal turning adjustment. Sometimes when you update the firmware, the wheel can get bugged, and that's really annoying, and then sometimes it's very difficult to get it out of its state. So yeah, this is the software on this wheel. I think the wheel is still very adjustable in the app. It just doesn't feel as premium and as advanced technologically as Emotion, but it works. It is adjustable, so I don't know. All right, so at this point, I think that the video is already way too long. Where's my tea? I need some tea. So I'm very happy if you still stick around at this point. Well, we got to talk about the ride, right? So especially jumping from the F22 Pro that I reviewed recently, I feel that the Begode X-Way excels in performance, especially torque, and the ability to climb things and brake instantly and have a lot of headroom, but it doesn't have the same level of precision as that wheel. So with this wheel, I really needed to learn how the software sort of behaves in order to get the most out of it. I feel like I need to lean a lot forwards, lean a lot back in order to accelerate hard or brake hard. But once you get used to it and really push into those grizzly pads, yeah, then you really accelerate and it's really fast and torquey. It was literally wheel spinning going up a stair set like every step of the way. Every step you take. When it comes to the suspension, I already talked about it earlier, but the sort of whole combo of power and a lot of suspension travel and quite good geometry means that this wheel is very capable off-road. Going over routes is easy. Doing jumps is actually phenomenal. I was doing some jumps on this wheel and it feels very planted, very stable. I would say that the only downfall of it is either because of the tire or because of the suspension setup with having, the 2 stanchions instead of 4 on the F22 Pro. And that is the turning really, where it just feels a little bit wonky. I got used to it and I can still do quite precise movements on the Begode X-Way. I just don't have the same level of confidence and sort of that the same move will result in the same thing that the wheel does every time I do it. So while on the F22 Pro I could, do a spin and jump backwards into a stair set, here I was like, no, I better not. Even though I had better pads on this wheel. And occasionally, if you accelerate hard, you can get the slight wobble, like the wheel just sort of flips under you. And Again, I don't know if it's the tire, if it's the setup of the suspension, but it's just not as precise as the F22 Pro. But at the same time, you can make it work once you get used to it. And with that said, with this suspension travel, with this power, with those, pedals, with the shape of the wheel, the ground clearance as well, I think that this is actually currently the most capable wheel off-road, because it has more suspension travel than the Lynx, with the same amount of power and the same amount of, torque. That's at least what I believe in. And definitely a lot better software. It has also more travel than the F22 Pro and definitely a lot more torque. Compared to the V14, the V14 just has a smaller contact patch on the tire, less ground clearance, maybe more torque on the V14, definitely lighter to accelerate on, but this does the same thing and it just eats all of the bumps up because it has more suspension travel. So in a matter of knockouting other sort of wheels, this just stays on top just because it has all of the things that work in harmony to create a very, very badass product that is, in my opinion, the most capable off-road wheel out there. So once you get used to it all, once you get used to the balance, to the slightly bigger form factor, but still very comfortable with here a bit of foam inside, you will do magic with this wheel. You will go upstairs, downstairs, the wheel will spin and you will still remain in control. When I was riding this wheel and I was pushing it quite hard, especially on the sand, it never dipped. It's just so freaking powerful. It's almost like a tank, really. It doesn't really feel like it has just one wheel, it just rolls over stuff. So in terms of the ride, requires a lot of effort. Definitely not the best for beginners, but once you get used to it, it will be just like killer. And especially with the suspension travel, might make a lot of the trails easier that you've been riding earlier on wheels with less suspension travel, because here just like eats up everything. All right, so I don't think that this review was very brief in the end, but hey, here we are. This is the Begode X-Way. It cost me a lot of headache with all of the issues that I had initially, especially with the bearings, the cables popping out, all of the noise that it creates, the creaks, the squeaks, the seat popping up and down, the not insulated wire here for charging, the two short screws here. I had quite a bit of headache, but as it turns out, well, it was a prototype and I definitely do not want another Begode prototype arriving at my doorstep. I want this right away because it also just makes more sense and I just don't need to make so many videos and repair this thing constantly. But with that said, once I got over it and I really pushed it recently, I was quite impressed with the X-Way. So in total, what can I say? It's the most capable off-road wheel out there on the market right now, period. Well, I didn't test the NOSFET, but it has veteran software, so how good can it be, really? But with that said, will it break within 1,000 kilometers of off-road riding? Maybe. Will you have everything covered by warranty? Hopefully, like when you buy it from a renowned distributor. I have eWheels linked below. eWheels has a very good reputation of giving spare parts, so hopefully there you will be fine. If you just buy it directly, well, your results may vary. Hopefully Begode will write back to you, maybe not, I don't know. It's just like, really, you buy it and you don't have certainty at all. You would have certainty if you would buy like an e-bike from Canyon or something, but here it's just like you enter into a deep void and maybe it will be great, maybe it will be terrible. And especially looking at the random cutouts that I've recently seen. I had a cutout on the M10.5 for no reason. My friend in the Prague had a cutout on my ET Max for no apparent reason. Recently, after 20,000 kilometers on a Master Pro, another one of my friends just had the motherboard blown when riding. So all I can say is like, it's pretty dangerous. And while it might be very rewarding and a great feeling, and probably you'll be able to do things on this wheel that you are not able to do on any other wheel, whether it will be safe in the long run and a good purchase for thousands of kilometers to go, I don't know, just time will tell. It's really not, I really can't tell you, because I just have those wheels for a limited time, for a limited amount of kilometers. And what happens later, like, the community can tell you the best. So comment below if you have a wheel like that. I do try to do my best to push those wheels to the limits to find out what's right and wrong about them. But, you know, the batches vary, the production varies. And you know, the consequences are always big because we just rely on one wheel. So if something goes wrong here, we're screwed. So yeah, Begode X-Way. One more thing before we end the video. Anita Kwan at Begode. The communication with Begode is excellent, and Anita is an amazing worker there. And she was coordinating a lot of the stuff here, and we were always in contact. She was always very honest, friendly, and trying to find solutions. So I'm really, really happy to have someone at Begode that is really helping me out with all of that stuff. So Anita, you deserve a raise. With that said, if you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. See you soon!